The work of building lasting Christian culture in this town will take the effort of many faithful women.
We do not agree with the feminists that the future is feminine, denying the beautiful gift of God's created order.
We do know that when women are faithfully filling their roles as wives, mothers, church members, and friends, the Lord will use them to bless the whole community.
And in that way, we believe the future is faithful.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Future is Faithful. I am Aleena.
I'm Liz.
And we are just sitting outside on a lovely evening.
It is lovely.
It's great out here.
Summery.
Yeah. And we wanted to talk about how we ended up going from full-time careers to being full-time stay-at-home moms, and why we love it, and how we used to think pretty differently than we do now. Want to give you guys a little bit of background and just talk about all the perks of being home with your kids, really. So I can start.
Go for it.
Cool. Let's see, about 9 years ago, because my oldest kiddo is 8. So 9 years ago.
How?
I know, that still blows my mind.
He's so old.
He's so great and so big. I got my first job, and this was after I went to grad school, and I got a job working in like software engineering for a hospital, and I really loved that job. It was awesome. They were really flexible with me, really great. I learned a ton. And back in that time, though, when I had just gotten out of grad school and I was looking for work, and Daniel and I had been married for a couple of years at that point, I guess. And I was still kind of stuck in this mindset of like, I want to get married and have kids, but like, what's the point of even being home? Like, I don't see any value in putting effort into those kinds of things. And it truly all in my head seemed like kind of a waste of time. And shouldn't I just pursue a career? And that was really, I think, more deeply rooted than I thought. Anyway, so got a job, loved it. Fast forward to, we had a kiddo. We had our first kid, and I was still working, and I kept working because my job allowed me to be really flexible, all of that stuff. I guess fast forward again, we had another kid, and I just kind of kept this same pattern up. And truly, like, it worked out in a way, because I was able to spend some time at home with my kids. I had this kind of like part-time schedule going on, but early on there, my attitude about being home and raising kids, I could see the value in like prioritizing all that stuff, but I didn't actually believe that it made sense for me to do. It was kind of like well, that makes sense for other people, but this doesn't come naturally to me. And so why would I ever willingly leave a job, in order to do things with my toddlers, basically. And so I just had this kind of really shallow view of the value of all that. And it was sort of a slow process, and the Lord was really very kind. But I distinctly remember that during COVID, that was one of the times where my mind just changed on so many different things all at once, or at least it felt like it was all at once. And I think this was kind of like a slow moving snowball up until that point, but then it really picked up speed when COVID hit, and we were just forced to do things so differently than we had been. We went from like part-time daycare for our kids to no daycare, figuring out how to work from home and try to be there for our kids. And that was also the time when I started watching the Great British Baking Show, and
Life-changing.
Yeah, truly life-changing. And that's not a joke. Just got more into baking and cooking. And anyway, also during that time, no, it was before this, but I had read a book called Eve in Exile by Rebecca Merkel. And it's just a book really exploring like biblical femininity and what it means to kind of take that back in our modern culture. And that book really kind of got the wheels turning. And that book actually Liz recommended that I read. So thanks again.
I would recommend it again.
It's such a great read. And I should read it again. So anyway, wheels were kind of already turning. I feel like I had these like kind of quiet convictions that I was probably just willingly like pushing down and ignoring. But eventually it was not possible to ignore it anymore. And we started really asking ourselves, what do we want our family culture to look like? And what kind of parents do we want to be? And how can we do more for our kids? And that really kind of set things in motion for me to not work full time anymore. It was still kind of a gradual shift into becoming a full-time stay-at-home mom, but I started to just, on purpose, try to find, I guess, more joy and more value in all these like homemaking tasks that I thought just weren't worth it before. And praise the Lord, like it is actually really fun. And I'm not going to pretend like I love doing laundry or anything, but like there's things that just are not really like full of joy all the time. But just the act of like taking care of your home and prioritizing that and seeing the value that it gives to all the other people who live there. And doing that so that you can have more time with your kids and put time into their education and all these things and just make their childhood fun. It is such a gift from the Lord when you can do that, and when your husband supports it and wants you to do it and wants to see you succeed. It's just really cool. And so anyway, now for a little over a year, I have had no job other than just being home. And prior to that, I was just working super part-time, like remote, just a couple hours a week. Even that, though, I found was like a mental burden that I didn't want to have to bear for much longer, because it's just it's two totally different mindsets to try to be in, of like, working a super technical job versus like putting that away and then being fully present in your home and with your kids. It's really difficult. Sum it up with, like, if you have young kids, I really recommend just thinking about how valuable it is to give them the gift of your time and attention for those young years. It is just time you can never replace and never get back.
Nice.
That's that in a nutshell.
That's good. My background will be very parallel. Everyone will notice, I'm sure.
Did we already say that we were sisters-in-law?
We did not already say that.
Didn't say that.
So
Meant to.
now you know. The more you know. For those who don't know. It does become relevant, because a lot of this development happening in parallels, because we just talked all the time at a distance. And I'm saying that like
we live here that time.
Yeah, we wouldn't have talked if we were just friends.
No.
But because you married my brother, we talked every day.
We had to.
We had to. You are stuck.
Yep.
Forever. But yeah, I went to college, studied aerospace engineering, joined the Air Force. So I was full-time active duty Air Force, and so was my husband. So we were kind of doing, praise the Lord, we were always in the same place, like stationed together once we were both active duty. So at this time we lived in Georgia, and it was just, that's what we did. Our entire lives revolved around work, because my husband deployed regularly, and we thought to ourselves, now's not a great time to have kids, obviously, And at first it was like, well, now is not a great time to have kids, therefore we'll wait till it's a good time, rather than we should make it the time.
Right.
we needed to go. So that was not the mindset at all at the time. I just, you presume upon the Lord's kindness and you think, I'll do that when I feel like it, Lord, I will do that later. So at the time we just enjoyed our work. He was gone a lot, and I had a couple really great jobs. I found a lot of fulfillment in my work. I loved being in the Air Force. I did a lot of really cool things. And it's time I have a lot of mixed feelings about, because on the one hand, I wouldn't trade it. On the other hand, would I do it all again if I knew or was convicted when I was 22 and a newlywed the way that I am now? Probably not, but it was great. And at that time, I was in a pretty slow job. There were times that we just had literally no work we could possibly be doing. And I remember reading a book during lunch at work one day, and it was Even Exile. And I don't remember why I read it. Like, I truly can't remember what put it into my hands, because I don't really remember someone in Georgia reading it at the time. So
it's kind of a random.
Correct me. Yeah.
A little. Yeah. I don't know why you read it either.
I don't know.
But it's cool.
Was maybe I was already listening to What Have You?
Maybe.
Not sure.
Yeah.
Either way, Rebecca Merkel changed my life with that book, truly, because I wouldn't have called myself a feminist. I would have, decried a lot of the same things that she does in the book when she lays out what feminism has done to our country and to femininity in general throughout the years. I think I would have rejected a lot of that stuff, but reading that book, I was like, oh man, I didn't realize how many of these beliefs are just kind of rooted in my heart. And you think because you're not marching through the streets with a My Body, My Choice sign that you don't uphold any of these aspects of their worldview, and that's not necessarily true. You really have to look at yourself and say, what have I internalized from this through however many years of public school and whatever full-time work that definitely my work had no intention of seeing me leave, right? It wasn't like they're like, and when you're ready for kids, you get out of here and do it. It's more important than this. Yeah. They're like, it'd be better if you didn't just freeze your eggs and deploy without your husband. Yeah. And truly, that's what the military wants women to do. Just we can talk more about that another time. But yeah, so I started realizing that's not what's valued here. And shouldn't it be what I value? Isn't it what the Lord values? Building a family, having a home that we care about. It's like our home is just, at the time we lived in an apartment, which is great, but it wasn't a home. It was just like where we slept. And the rest of the time we were working or doing stuff or whatever. We very rarely extended a lot of hospitality. So yeah, I just started thinking of those things. The conviction grew and grew. And then I think a lot of it was, at the time I had accepted a job in Colorado, and my husband had tried to get a job in Colorado and was denied. And so we had just found out, I think around that time, that he was going to be staying there for a year, staying in Georgia for a year while I lived out here. And that was probably the 8th thing that the Air Force did to make us go, hey, you don't care about our family. You don't care about this at all.
Was it really a year?
It was a year. Yeah. He was gone for 2 months before I left, and then 10 months after I left. So
that's wild.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a long time ago. We've spent our fair share of time apart, but yeah, I just realized the Air Force didn't care about any of those things. And I was like, shouldn't I get out of here? Like, isn't it time to just move on? And one of the things I found so convicting in the book, and we'll get to this too, but one of my kind of closely held beliefs about being a stay-at-home mom, and I mean this as no disrespect to anyone I knew at the time who was a stay-at-home mom, but I just thought it doesn't demand that much of you intellectually. And I knew, or I could conceive of, stay-at-home moms who just did it because they didn't have any other options. Like, I knew a lot of women who, they didn't leave a career to become stay-at-home moms. They just were stay-at-home moms. They started that way. And I was like, well, that's good for you, but I have this career. So I need to find, I need to wait till it's more important for me to be at home. And I realized, rather, the Lord convicted me truly, that in reading Eve in Exile is basically like, well, if you think it is not intellectually challenging, it's probably because you don't think of it right. Like, can you conceive? Yeah, exactly. Can you conceive of a stay-at-home mom who applies all of her intellect, all of her passion, her creativity, her problem-solving abilities, everything that she has, to being a stay-at-home mom and doesn't do great at it, and that there's no fruit from that? Like, and I basically, what I started telling myself was, well, if you're so smart, if you're just so smart and intellectually advanced, prove it. Like, make it look easy.
Go do a good job at this thing over here. Yeah.
And spoilers, I didn't make it look easy. And I probably never will. But I started thinking of it as more of a blessing to pursue, and a skill or a set of skills to hone, and something to pour myself into that was inside my home, and even before having kids, because we still didn't at this point, rather than, pouring all of my time and my intellect and things that I enjoyed doing into my job, who did not care for me, right? My job did not care for my husband, didn't even care if we were together. Yeah. So that's when I was radicalized. That's when it all started for me. And once we were both out here, we had our first kid, and it's all been wonderful ever since. So I too had a kind of gradual transition to being a full-time stay-at-home mom. When I was finally able to leave active duty, I say finally, but our son, our firstborn, was 6 months old, 9 months old, somewhere in there. He was little. So he spent that whole first chunk of that first year in daycare. But COVID happened, right? And I was able to start spending more and more time with him. And I was like, wow, I don't want to go back to work.
Forget that.
Yeah. But I had already started the clock. I had already said I was trying to leave. It was just a matter of the paperwork and the timing working out. So then I went to part-time military work and realized I was still having to arrange childcare for my kids. And I was like, what is this for? So it was a gradual transition from full-time Air Force work to part-time military. I realized I had all the same problems. I was sort of like you said, you have to split your mindset between what I have to do for work and what I have to do for home. And I found my home still suffered. It didn't really matter that I wasn't working full time. I still had to arrange childcare for my kids. I was still missing out on things with them that I wanted to do. I was still having to pump to go to work. Just all the things that I wanted to not be doing. I just wanted to be at home with my then second baby. So eventually I also left the reserves, and I was just a part-time contractor because I hadn't learned my lesson yet. And that was really great. It was super flexible. And I just thought to myself, well, I'll just do it all when the kids are asleep. Right. And at the time,
you're so tired.
It worked. But yeah, I was exhausted. That was time I wasn't spending with my husband, or doing the dishes, like the time that you spend kind of cleaning up from the day. So eventually I realized that wasn't going to do it either. And I just was able to cut that loose. And it was very freeing for me to just be all the way done with all of it. And I thought I would feel sad letting it go, because the world tells you this is this, for me, this is this intellectual thing that you want to hold on to. Everyone is like, oh, aren't you so glad to be here talking to grown-ups? And I was like, not really. All of you, they're really great people, but most of the people I worked with were either childless or complained about their children all the time. I was like, well,
Truly depressing.
you guys aren't super fun to be around.
Not ideal.
Not making it look good. So anyway,
Yeah.
that is how it all happened. So I think the natural segue is, were the things you thought about staying at home true before you did it? Your misconceptions?
Oh, were my misconceptions true?
Spoiler.
Overall, no. Well, because they're misconceptions, right?
I
they're
gave it
not
away.
true. Nice. Yep. I'm sure all these ideas came from like so many different places, right? Everyone, I mean, yeah, I don't really know how all my different misconceptions were formed, but you said the whole intellect thing, thinking that being a stay-at-home mom was inherently just not mentally stimulating or challenging. And I for sure thought that too. And you know, I think back and I'm like, where did I get that from? Was I just assuming things about the job or about people, you know, who I saw being stay-at-home moms? Like, how, that's not very gracious of me. Yeah, so I thought it wouldn't be intellectually stimulating. I thought it'd be boring. I thought that it would literally just be like housework and having to come up with like activities for the kids that I didn't enjoy. If I could sum it up, that's kind of all I thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought it was just like monotonous, the same thing every day. And I mean, let's be real. Some days are monotonous and are not my favorite. You know, I'm not going to like pretend that all of this is just like, I'm so happy sweeping the floor again and whatever. But really having the bigger picture of like, this is where the Lord has put me. And he gave me a job to do. And like the realm of possibilities is so big. I don't know why I used to think so small about it, where I just thought, oh, we have to be home all the time doing nothing cool, you know. We get to go to the library, yay, and that's like it. But really, that's not true. Like, it is wide open for your creativity to take root, for you to follow your kids' ambitions and like, you know, figure out what are they into and how can I, you know, set them up for success in whatever their interests are and all of that stuff. If you don't tell yourself it's going to be terrible, you could actually see that it's not terrible. It's actually really great. And just like any job comes with its challenges and its days where you're like, well, yeah, better luck next time. That wasn't the best, or I wish it could be different. But not viewing that as like a death sentence for thinking you're wasting your 20s and 30s or something because you're at home. It's just, it's so not that. Yeah, I don't know. I could go into more specifics, but
No, that's great.
That's the overview.
Yeah, the world would really have you think that if you're not making money, it's truly all about money. Like if you're not making money, you are not bringing value to a situation. It's ironically very anti-feminist. It's just a very
really
degrading
Isn't
point
that
of
weird?
view. But they would have you think that, so you kind of think of the monotony of day-to-day life as, yeah, like a sign that it's the wrong thing or something like that. When really the monotony, the consistency, if you will,
There you go.
it's the perk. Like.
Right.
You get to see very directly the Lord's faithfulness in your very minute, day-to-day, sometimes minute-to-minute concerns, because many times they are minute-to-minute concerns where you're just, it feels like drowning in kids, your house is out of control, you maybe left things with your husband on a weird note, and you're like, now what? Well, it's there, you're dealing with it faithfully
By
in the
being where you're
Lord,
supposed to be.
in your home. Exactly. Rather than being like, oh, my house is out of control, my kids are upset and I left things weird with my husband, but it's okay, I'm going to go to work now.
Right.
And as long as I bring home this paycheck, you know, it's good to go. It's really easy, even without meaning to let work become a distraction from being in right relationship with those people. And I want to very quickly say, we don't think that if you're not a stay-at-home mom, that if you work and your kids are in daycare or something like that, like you are incapable of obedience or holiness or whatever.
Right.
That's not the point. There are plenty of extenuating circumstances. There are plenty of people who are where we were in 2017 or whatever.
Yep.
And the Lord will bring them there, you know.
Yeah, we are not against women doing anything outside the home.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
there's a lot of life to be lived, and it doesn't all have to be right inside your four walls, you know.
Yes. But the question is what you're doing outside your home a blessing to your family?
Right.
Or does it detract from the ways you could be blessing your family?
Right.
And it's not just a cut and dry, are you in your house or out of your house? It's not like, are you a trad wife or are you a boss babe? You know?
Right.
It's just
like, who are you pointed at?
Yeah.
You know?
What is all this
Yeah.
for? How is it blessing your kids? How is it blessing your husband? And I think a lot of times that's how the conversation starts, is just asking your husband, like, do you see fruit? Do you see value in me
That's such a huge one.
leaving this job? Yeah.
Yeah. Asking for his opinion without assuming you already know, or without
Yes.
trying to stick your own opinion in there first, you know?
Or without jumping down his throat
Yeah.
if he says what you
manipulating
kind of
it.
hoped he wouldn't say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Never did
that's
that.
how it starts. I would never.
Yeah, I would never do
Would
that.
never wrong my husband. That's a good one. So that's a lot of background. That's kind of how we got to where we are now.
Yeah. I think, maybe I
That's
kind
a
of
good
said
one.
this before. My encouragement to myself 8 years ago would have been, why don't you take a second and look at how valuable these years are for your children, because this is their childhood. You get one of those, you know, everyone's got a different story about their childhood. Without a doubt, every parent wants their kids to have a good childhood. And again, I'm not saying your kids can't have a good childhood if they ever go to daycare. Like that's not the point. But the point is, like, if you are turned 180 degrees opposite of that, you think it's a waste of time, like I did, or you have no interest in pursuing anything related to blessing your family and your home while your kids are little, like, would be a good time to check in and just ask yourself, why am I so opposed to that? And really start challenging those thoughts, because that's kind of where I was. And I can tell you, it's pretty much a 180 now. There's only been good things that have come from that overall.
And it's not just time with your kids. When you think about directing everything you do to your home, there's fruit in every direction out of your home. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of women are insecure. Like, you might look at what you think the perfect stay-at-home mom looks like, and you might have this, misconception of this whole trad wife persona. If I don't make my own sourdough and mill my own flour and whatever, harvest all my own vegetables and can and homeschool, like, if I don't do all those things, then what's the point,
Mhm.
But truly, there is no end to the fruit that God can give you when you start just indiscriminately sowing seeds.
It's so true.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just so easy to be insecure and limit yourself
Yeah.
and be like, oh, well, I'm not that kind of person and I'll never be that kind of person.
Mhm.
And like, well, why not? Like, what if you could be in 10 years? What could you be doing in 10 years
Yeah.
if you started just trusting the Lord to bring fruit out of the seeds you're sowing right now?
Yeah.
In little things, whether you have kids or not, that's the other thing.
That's the other
Like,
thing. Yeah.
You can be honing skills in your home. I mean, I didn't have kids when I worked full time, and I had a 2-bedroom apartment, and it was not an enjoyable place to be because I didn't care. We were just there sometimes,
Right.
incidentally. And I did like to cook, but I didn't really ask myself, how can my cooking bless my husband? I didn't do that at all.
Mhm.
I didn't say, what things would he appreciate me keeping up with in this apartment that would be a blessing to him, that it would make him happier to walk through the door.
Yeah.
I didn't invite people into my home as often as I should have. I wasn't asking myself, how can I be a blessing to my local church body? What can I be doing as far as hospitality is concerned? Anyway,
There's so many things. Yeah.
the applications just go on forever.
Yeah.
And the point is, the Lord makes you fruitful. It's not, you don't have to just come up with all this fruit and bring it to the table and say, here you go, Lord,
Right.
look what I picked.
Yeah.
It's not that at all. It's just like, okay, God, I trust you. Make this glorious.
For the people who maybe you think that's just not who I am as a person. Like, I'm, maybe you don't fit into the typical mold of like homemaker, trad wife, whatever. Like, I'm obviously just using the stereotype phrases here, but
Sure.
if that's not you, fine. Figure out, who are you and how can you use your own personality to the betterment of your family? Like, there surely is a way. You don't have to be like doing all the typical, I don't know, like making little crafts and whatever.
Doilies.
Just cute little homemaker things. And I'm not knocking that at all. But like, if that's not you, that's fine.
And those
Figure
aren't
out,
the point.
yeah, what do you like? What do you want to do? What kind of family culture and home life do you want to have? Take those things and make them even bigger and better. Chances are, even just exploring that, like your own personal interests and trying to bless your family with them, probably will return a lot of fruit, because pretty sure your husband, who probably likes you, is going to be like enjoying seeing you excel at something and seeing you put effort in and try and, have interesting things to talk about and all of that stuff. Like, it is just, like you said, don't limit yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many ways to be a blessing. So
it's also easy to be like, well, if my husband's earning all the money and I'm not earning any money, then I'm sort of like, what am I doing that's of value?
Right.
But I see it as a great challenge. Like turn a profit on this money your husband is earning to bless you.
Take it and do something cool.
Yeah. Let's go. Like make him glad that he supports you in this, make him look good for making that decision for your family. And that is always a good answer.
That's
so
such a good point.
For someone listening to this who is like, oh man, all these years I wasted, whatever, having all these feminist leanings, but not knowing it and not being at home or whatever. What is fruit you've seen that the Lord has brought out of the time you did spend working now that you are a stay-at-home mom?
And I did spend working.
Yes.
Well, that job in particular was a really technical job, but had a lot of creative kind of elements to it as well, which I really enjoyed. And I think it just built some good like creative skill, honestly, and some critical thinking, which, at the time I would have been like, oh, I can only use that for very technical tasks. But that's not true. You can use that everywhere in your home to help your kids problem solve, to, juggle all the many tasks that come with homemaking and stuff. That job also was very, it was technical. So it was like science and medical based, I guess. So there's been many times where our kids will ask like, how do the lungs work or something like that? And I'm like, I actually have a lot of answers for you on that. Mm-hmm. So that's really fun. It's fun to be able to explain those kinds of concepts to them. Those are the main ones. What about you?
A million things.
So many things.
Time management.
There you go. I'm not good at that yet.
Working within an organizational structure. This is really nerdy, but I always say this and I'm going to say it again. The military. I like hierarchy. I like knowing whose job is what. And I like knowing how I can meet expectations for the role that I'm in. So this is all just very...
Give you a checklist.
Yes, I do love a checklist. And so for anyone military listening to this, when you're a stay-at-home mom, you're like the director of operations. Your husband is the commander. He gives you the vision for the household and you turn it into, here's what we're doing today. Let's go troops. We're doing it. And I promise we are not the Von Trapp family. I don't make my kids stand at attention every morning before they eat breakfast. It's just, I think it's helpful because I don't determine the vision for my family. I don't say where we're going. My husband cares about my opinion and he lets me weigh in on things. I'm not saying I am just silent and standing by for orders, but that's his job, is to tell us the mission. Then it's my job to say, okay, here's what we're doing today to make it happen. I love that. So the military gave me that. It gave me an assertiveness and ability to think critically under pressure and time constraints and things like that. All of that is helpful everywhere because all of life is just interacting with people. And sometimes those people are your kids. Yep. And the question is, okay, how do you interact with your kids now under pressure without making them feel totally oppressed by your attitude?
Many situations are under duress when you are managing little
when you
people.
Are a parent. Yeah, it's very true. So I do see a lot of fruit, and like on a practical level, like you were saying, sometimes my kids want to know how airplanes work. I have a cursory knowledge of that. Yeah. Sometimes they want to know what that little funny thing on the airplane is, or why does this jet engine look this way? And I'm like, I kind of remember. So but really, like maybe one day they need help with calculus and there's a part of my brain that will have held on to just two neurons just vibrating together that will be like, yes, I remember calculus. I can help you. But anyway, all of that, and especially college in general, my pursuit of an aerospace engineering degree probably seemed to everyone in my life completely out of left field. I am not, that's not my bent. I am not like Aleena here. I'm not like technically minded. I wanted to do it for a million reasons we could get into another time, but I was very bad. I graduated bottom of my class, like I think single digits away from the very bottom of my class. And that's fine because I learned so much about how to work hard when you feel like you're falling behind, when you feel like you're not cut out for something, when you feel not smart enough to do something. Mm-hmm. And, ironically, I left that experience thinking I was so smart. But really, if I can pass that on to my kids, like, you're not bad at this. You just haven't done it enough. Like, let's go. Let's go.
That is so, man, I've been repeating that so much to one kid in particular lately, that you can see that you're learning a new skill and you're struggling, and it's okay. That's actually really good. You have to learn this, not just this new skill of riding a bike, but the actual struggle of getting to the new skill. And I mean, I think like no matter what, you're going to learn that as an adult. I had a similar experience where college and then working was like, that was the avenue that I learned, wow, sometimes you just have to feel really bad about your capability and then sit there and figure it out and like just push yourself more than you ever thought you would, you know, in order to get to this thing on the other side that you know is better, whether it's like a degree or finishing the task for your boss or whatever. Because, you know, I mean, we spent the whole first half of this knocking work, but at the same time, we're not knocking work, because if you are in a job, whatever you're doing, do a really great job at it. Be excellent. So for those years where we did have careers and no kids, like, yeah, I'm proud that like I worked really hard at that, and should have also been working harder on my attitude about my home. But you know, hey, here we are now. So
Here we are.
it's fine.
That's a good point too. I can conceive of someone listening to this and thinking, well, all I want is to be a stay-at-home mom, but right now it's not the thing.
Right.
Like it doesn't make sense for us financially, or my husband isn't on board, or whatever.
Maybe you don't have kids yet, and like, yeah, you're working, and
yeah,
fine, great.
Maybe you're not married yet.
Yeah,
like, whatever. There are plenty of reasons that might be the case, and you want to be at home, but that's not it right now. That's not what the Lord has for you. And yeah, like Aleena said, your job is to go to do what you are doing, whatever the Lord has given you to do, this job, this work outside of your home, and make it a blessing to the people inside your home. So if you have a job and that's how it is, you do so great at your job.
Yeah.
And that's what Christians do.
Be a Christian at it.
Yeah. Do Christianity at it.
Do your thing.
Be faithful.
Yeah.
Do hard work. Do a good job. And don't punish your family when you get home at the end of the day from working a job you don't want to be working and say, you know, well, you would all be so much more blessed if I would have been here with you all day. Because when you kick open the door with that attitude, they're going to be like, I don't believe you.
That attitude, that'll come right with you.
Yes. Yep. And so you can turn a profit, make a blessing for your home out of anything that you're doing. That doesn't mean blindly go on working if you feel the Lord is calling you to stay home with your kids. That just means that whatever you're doing outside the home, make it a blessing.
Yep.
You know, if you're helping your husband because you have another job and that's what you need to do right now, help your husband with a happy heart.
Yep.
Because the only way to mess that up is to do a bad job and to bring your discontent back into the house with you. And punish him for trying to support you guys right now. So there's so many situations where that's really tempting. Like, and I felt that whenever I started thinking, oh, I should be at home. It was hard to go to work. It really was, especially after COVID. And it was like, we're coming back in person. I was like, are we?
Yeah. Did we have to?
I'd rather not. I want to be with my kid. I probably really needed to manage my attitude better at that time. Whatever you have to do it with all your might, right? The Lord said it first. I recently read a book called The Read Aloud Family by Sarah Mackenzie. I just wholeheartedly recommend this book. I kind of went into it thinking she was going to just have a bunch of book lists. Like, if you have kids this age, here's what you should read to them. And reading aloud is good for all these scientific readings. And, you know, like, look at these journals and then you'll agree with me. But really, she's a Christian. And what she talked about was how when we read to our kids, we're just telling them stories. And we want to tell our kids good stories and remind them that they're characters in God's story. What kind of character do you want to be? So I'm stealing a little from N.D. Wilson there. But she talks about all kinds of authors who have that same kind of a mindset. She does give examples of books, but she talks about how those stories will elicit, you know, thoughts of bravery and courage and resilience and cheerfulness and all kinds of wonderful things in your kids. And it just made me really pumped. It's easy to get bored reading kids books when you kind of coast. So reading that book, I was like, yeah, let's go. Like, let's go to the library with a plan and with a list. And yeah, let's just read. Because in my family, when we're falling apart, you can turn on the TV and everyone will be quiet. But you can say, let's read a book and everyone will be happy. That is really... That's
very sweet.
It's not always what I want to do. But yeah, if it's like, okay, we're going to make a push, let's read. And it can just turn things around for us. So
yeah,
that's a recommendation. That's been a blessing to us lately. And I assume it will be for many years to come.
Yeah.
How about you?
It's on my list of things to read now.
Got to do it.
Okay. Mine is this app called Merlin. It's really fun. It's about birds.
The app is about
the
birds.
app is all about birds and nothing else.
It's true though.
Yeah, someone told me I was 30 years too early on this hobby, and I just don't care. It's fine.
Wasn't it your mom?
My
told
mom
you that?
said that. Yeah.
Oh.
So I recently just thought birds are cool. So I should learn more about them. But this app is really fun, and it's fun for kids to get on too, or just really anyone in your life that you want to tell about birds. But you
share the
can
good news of birds. Have you seen these things? They're everywhere.
The jokes never stop.
They don't. They don't.
I'm
Why
not
is the
annoying
app
about
cool?
it.
You have to
Okay,
explain why
the app is cool because you can turn on the sound recording feature and just go outside if there's birds chirping, and it will record. It will record what it's hearing, and it will identify in real time all the birds that are around, and it's so fun. It's just you might get like 7 or 8 of them, and it will tell you which ones are singing and when, and then it tells you all these fun facts about them. So that's cool.
Yes.
Or if you have like pictures, you take a picture of a bird and you're wondering what is that bird, you can upload it into the app and it will tell you. And it has to be it can't be like a really low quality picture because then it doesn't know, but it uses like your geographic location and I guess like time of year and all that stuff to figure out which birds are likely nearby. And then it's just fun. We've been going on bird walks to just walk around the neighborhood and listen for the birds. Kids just have like 10 times more fun with everything that an adult would think is a little bit fun. They just think it's awesome. And so
true.
They get all into it. And the other day we went on a walk and they were listening for birds. And then we ended up finding 2 robin's eggs that had fallen out of a nest, which was kind of sad. And they were all cracked open on the sidewalk. Yeah, sad. But it was I'm just illustrating, I guess, that it like opens up all these just other cool things to notice and like ways to spend time talking to your kids about nature and stuff. So that's just been fun.
It has also blessed our family. I have been going on walks just to find birds.
Nice.
And I think it was your husband told me, it sounds like you're playing Pokemon. Like you have to go collect all of the birds.
Oh my gosh.
I have walked a certain direction just to see if I would pick up a bird I was hearing. But
it is like that. It's exactly like Pokemon Go for birds and women.
I'm not embarrassed. Men can't like birds. You heard it here first. No, the other day, I guess Theo was at his grandparents' house, is my oldest son. He was just like, is that a meadowlark I hear?
He knows.
And it's very cute. And they really, I mean, I'm doing it too. I just listen more. I'm like, wow, birds are always singing.
There's
it's
a
like
lot.
the Lord was it's just a sprinkling of blessing.
Yeah.
It's like here, there's always something to hear and look for, even if you are in the middle of a city. So
yeah, it's fun. It's been cool.
That's a great rec. Okay, well, we hope all of this was an encouragement to you all. We just wanted to give some background on kind of who we are and how we arrived at this point in our lives. We know that there are all kinds of people who could be listening to this, different situations and stuff, but that's just where we would hope that you would start, is just think of what you can be doing, what you are doing right now, with your hands, with your time, with your efforts. What are you giving kind of these years, the best years of your life to? And is it blessing your family? And if not, like how do we make it a blessing to your family? So hopefully that's an encouragement to all of you. And remember, the future is faithful.